All right, so for those of you who haven't met me, my name's Andrew. I'm an associate broker here. Been licensed with my home group since 2012. I head up our mentorship program, and I also answer the broker line, review docs on SkySlope, stuff like that. So I have my hand in a lot of this stuff every single day. And so I'm going to start with what most agents would probably want to start with, which would be armless. Basic, easy things you can do with this website that you may or may not know you can do. And then I'll show you how to set up a search, and I'll show you how to save a search, add a subscription, all those things. So I have mine, so you can customize this however you want. Right here, there's a customize tab. So I have mine showing my listings, and it just shows closed listings. It shows then active listings I have, people that have saved searches, and then my hot sheet. So a hot sheet is basically anything in the next 24 hours. Anything that's happened in the last 24 hours would be considered what's on the hot sheet. So to start, I'll start with a few things that are probably maybe know, maybe don't know, but so like market summary right here up top. So if I click that, it pulls up everything. Right now I have mine set for 85383. So it shows you number of listings, listing prices, absorption rate. Absorption rate means number of homes for sale versus how many come up for sale every month versus how many are getting bought every month. Sold to list ratios, days on market, just a wealth of information on that specific zip code. Now you can change it, you can customize it, put a new location, and you can do whatever you want. You can put any city, any zip code, any kind of property type, rentals, multifamily. You can customize this to whatever you want. And the cool thing is, once you're done, you can email it, you can print it, you can have it at open houses, you can have it wherever you want. And this is just offered through Armless, and you can do this at your leisure. So it's pretty cool. Lots of information to decipher. So if you're at an open house and you have that specific zip code, it's a good thing you can hand another thing that you can be handing out to people. Pretty easy to do. You can go back to, like I said, residential rentals, land, lot, any kind of property that's on the MLS. You could switch that, and you could do city town code. You can, like I said, you could do whatever you want. You could do MLS fields. You could have it search by specific houses, specific. You can do overlays as well. There's a lot of things you can do with this specific thing that we just don't have time to get into today. But as a general thing, if you just want to do a zip code, that's probably the most of what people are going to do is a zip code. So you can quickly email this to your clients, email this to yourself, whatever you want to do with it. But I feel like a lot of people just don't know that that's there. You don't have to ask anybody for market stats. You can pull them up yourself. You can look right there and pull them. The other one that I use a lot is Monsoon through MLS, and that's right up there on the tab too. So a lot of people will get a lot of questions. How do I do a CMA? How do I do a comparable property report? Where do I find the assessor's number? Where do I find the legal description? That's all found through Monsoon. So I'll use. So this is my house. So you could do, it pulls up, it says, here's the legal description, right here highlighted. Here's the assessor's number right here. And then if you just quickly want to know what a comp would be, there's this button right here that says comp, and that's all it means. It's going to pull comparables. So then you can change the criteria for comparison. So you want the same as the house you're looking at, which obviously you do. Do you want to ignore lot square footage? Do you want it to look at lots that are 5%, 10%, 20%? How close do you want it to look? Half mile, 2 miles, whatever. Square footage, how close in square footage do you want it to be? Last 12 months, 24 months, 3 months, 6 months, how tight do you want it to be? And then pull I always have mine same as subject, so it's whatever the house is, it'll search for that. And it quickly comes up with a value. And sometimes these are right, sometimes these are wrong, but it's like, it's a quick basis of comparison. And it gives you others that have sold around there, stuff like that. So then what you can do, then you can go, well, I want a comp detail report. And now I can either print it out right now, or I can download a PDF of it. And the PDF will come right to my screen, it'll have every single comp, and I can email that out to anybody who's asking me for a comparable property report. It takes all of 3 minutes to do, and like I said, it's not the best, most accurate thing to do, but if you don't have anything else to start with, like, you can start there. So, but Monsoon has a wealth of information, everything you need to know about, everything you need to know about a property to write an offer, the actual property owner, the address, the legal, all those things that we have to have on our offers, is most of it's down here, square footage, all that stuff, when it was sold, last sold, how many notes are on it, like it'll tell you who the notes are, all those things. The deed history, when it was transferred, all those things you might need to know. So that was Monsoon, like and for Monsoon, that's probably 99% of the time that's why you're going there, is because you're writing an offer and you need to get the correct information to fill in. So, but you can use it for comparables, which is a good way to start. So that's Monsoon through Armless. And the next one up here at the top is RPR. So this one is pretty awesome. So what RPR is, you can see right here, it's already branded to our brokerage. Whatever brokerage you're at, it'll be branded. So hopefully you're with my home group, but it'll be branded. And then what you can do is literally just put any address in here. So I'll do mine again. And you search. And it comes up with all this information. So the Rbm is the value. This one right here is important to know if you're going to use it for this. This Rbm Confidence. That just means based on comps, how confident their algorithm is that their evaluation is correct. So I've seen it all the way down to 2, just because there's no data. So it's basically just pulling all the data. It's like a Zestimate, I guess, is a dirty word, but it's like a Zestimate, but way more accurate because it's pulling actual Armless sold data. This is all pulled through our MLS. And then, I mean, so this is cool, but this is the best part. So if you want to create a report, so there's a million different types of reports, and it starts with a picture of you, like right here, picture of the property, picture of you, branded to you, as long as you have your information pulled up. You know, as long as your information's, because it's pulling from Armless. If you have a headshot in Armless, it'll pull your headshot into it. And so what you can do is you can delivery method. So if you want a property report, like here's a sample. This property report, it will be about 29 pages. So it has pictures of comparables, it has pictures of last sales, it has demographics, it has school info, it has almost any kind of information you could want will go into this report. And the greatest thing about it is, if I want a seller's report, I have someone on my list, I can say, like, how detailed do I want it to be? I can put all these things in here, how detailed I want it, how not detailed I want it, how long do I want to make it, subject property, limit market activity to how many properties you want it to be on there. And then when you're done, you enter the name of the recipient, a little message if you want, their email, and you hit send, and it sends them like anywhere from a 30 to 50 page report that is branded to you completely, and it looks like it took you hours and hours to do it, and it took you 3 minutes, 3 clicks. I mean, it's just like, people really like these reports because it's almost an overload of information, but it's almost anything you could ever ask for in a property comes in this report from RPR, and you can customize it. You can do a neighborhood report, you can do a school report, market activity report, and all of them are 2 clicks away from being sent, and it comes from you. It looks like it came from you. And when they open it, it's branded to you. So super cool to send to anybody on your sphere list, in your database, anybody you have all you need is an email address and a name and an address, and you can send this. That's all you need. That's the only requirements. So super easy to send to anybody who you might be prospecting on if they're curious about it. If they ask you for a home report, you know, this is the one that I would send, because I found that it's probably 90 to 95% accurate, pretty close. The comparables on monsoon is a good place to start if you're in a pinch. You don't have time to cipher through all the Rbm data of this. This is a little bit more of a deep dive into, because it's super customizable. I mean, you can customize anything on this. So if you know specifics about the property, like say, okay, none of these comps aren't working for me, so I can go ahead and create my own comps and pick properties that are sold, and it'll show up in the report. I can go in and refine this and say, well, this house is the market conditions are my neighborhood are hot or not hot, and it'll change. And what happens when this changes? The price changes. So, and I could do the same thing with my exterior is super nice, so the price went up. Or the same thing, inside's nice, the privacy, the view, whatever it is that you think affects the value on that property can be edited here. So if you know that they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a remodel, but it's obviously not reflected on here because they're just going off sold data. They have no idea what the actual interior is like. So you can edit it and change it, or you can even do it right here. Say, well, I did a remodel and the total cost was X, and then it'll change the price. So just like super cool thing to do. You can do it in a heartbeat. You can go through your whole list in 30 minutes. That's what I mean. I do this quarterly. Send it out to everybody that I've ever sold a house to, everybody that's on my database, and I've gotten legitimate listings from doing this because they're like, oh, I had no idea my house was X. Like we want to move up. So pretty cool way to keep in touch too, because it doesn't takes no time. And I think I do it once a quarter. So pretty cool thing to do. Pretty easy, super easy, and it's branded. So you don't have to do anything else except for have your stuff in MLS, which you should anyways. Any questions on RPR?
So you can put your address, email address, and you type in RPR and it automatically brings it up. Is that?
No, so RPR is through the MLS. So you can customize. So here's my homepage. You can customize, reorder. I put whatever the top things that I'm going to use are at the top of my MLS. So RPR is just right here, and it takes you automatically.
Okay.
And then from here, you enter an address, and then you select what kind of report you want to create, and then you enter the email address. So it's like 3 or 4 steps, and a couple minutes, and it's out. So
where would we find RPR?
What's that?
Is it already at?
It's already in MLS. If you don't have it in that tab, it'll be in the menu.
Okay.
It's right. There's taxes, monsoon. There's reports. There's searches, contacts, statistics, daily functions, products. It's right here. I have it starred. Anything that I have starred goes up top.
I did not realize you could change those.
Yeah, you can change it to whatever you want it to be. You could change even your home screen. Change it however to what you want to see up at the top. So, so the new. I don't know while I'm here, this is new homes. So if anybody's ever asking for a new home build, this is where you search. It's not super accurate, but it's a good way to start. And then you could check. So back to the MLS daily functions. I have the hot sheet on mine, so it just shows me everything that's happened, how many price drops, how many new listings. You can have messages up there, like if people contact you directly through there. Open houses, market areas. There's so many things that you could do through here that are super easy. But I'm gonna show you how to do a search real quick.
Take that one. I'm lucky enough to know how to do that.
So I usually do a map search because people usually tell me, I don't know how if you're working with any clients, but they usually tell me, hey, I want to be between 7th Street and I-17, and I don't wanna go any farther north than this, and I don't wanna go any farther south than this. So usually, it usually ends up being a square that they're telling me. So I'll do, I just find where they're talking about. And then down here on this tab, you can change. So this hand means when I click it, it drags the map. And then I can do a circle, I can do any kind of shape, but for whatever reason, I just end up always doing a square. So if I want to search that square, and then here's where you can customize it. So you can do, what status is it? Do you only want to see actives? Do you only want to see under contract? I mean, I don't know why you would want to see under contracts, but delayed, and so this is how you would do a, if it's a super hyper-focused CMA, this is how you would do it. You click on pendings and closed, and your close of escrow, and then it would show you everything that's closed in the last 6 months in that square. And then you could, so if that's what I wanted to do, but I only wanted to see, so here's list price. I only wanted to see homes between 200 and 300. So then it does that. So it changes that. So now we're down to 357. But they only want to see homes that are single family detached. They don't want to see any condos. So now we're down again.
So, Andrew, how do you figure out how to do the square?
It's right here at the bottom. When you go map search, at the bottom of the screen, there's a little hand. There's a square, there's a circle, blue circle. You just click on it.
Okay, but I guess I'm wondering, how do you know how big an area to include? How do you know?
Well, usually it's dependent on what the client tells you, what area, the parameters they set for you. Or if it's a city, you can search by a specific city. If it's a zip code, you can search by a specific zip code. You can change, like if you only wanted homes that were in Scottsdale, you would enter it here, and then only homes with Scottsdale would come up. If you only wanted homes in 85254, then you would enter it here, and only homes in 85254 would show up. If you know the map grid code, which, I mean, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, you would enter it there. If you want it to be only 3 bedrooms, it would change it to there.
Can you search by school district?
You can, let's see, school. You can search by school district. You can add whatever, so there's a button out here that says plus. So any field, like when you're adding a listing, any field that they take information on, you can type it in here. Like, if I only wanted to see homes at days on market with certain days on market, if I was looking for an investor and we were trying to find properties to write lower offers on, and I only wanted to see homes that were 180 days plus, then I would 180 days plus, and it would only show me those houses. So you could search any field that we collect data on, you could search by that field. So the only problem with that, like guest houses, detached garages, stuff like that, is it's incumbent on us as realtors to fill that out properly on the MLS. So sometimes if it might not show up. If the agent didn't list it properly, it might not show up. So that's the only caveat I would say with that, is if you're searching by something hyper specific, if it wasn't inputted properly, then it's not going to show. So that's the only thing about casting such a short, a narrow net is that. So I try to stay away from stuff like that, and it might be more time consuming, but if they have something super specific, like they want an in-law suite or something like that, there's a button on MLS to do that, but the agent has to have done it properly. So if they don't, then I'll just search for the zip code that they're talking about, or the square, whatever they gave me, plus the price, and I'll try to filter through the pictures myself to see, and then if it looks like it could work, I usually call the agent, just ask them, is that actually a detached guest house, or is that actually an in-law quarters, or is there actually a third car garage, like what is it? Because that's the unfortunate part of our business, is we always rely on other people and their information. Their information has to be accurate, otherwise we're not going to be accurate. So you can look at all these fields you could have. I mean, you can search by accessibility features. If you have a ADA client, You could search by activities, open houses. You could search by horses, ranch, farm. You could search by how many bedrooms. Is it a split floor plan? Is there two master bedrooms? You could search, like the list of things you could search for is crazy. But again, you have to make sure that whoever did it is accurate. So you could potentially miss something that may have worked, but it doesn't have that specific thing. So I'm always hesitant to hyper focus it to that degree. So, I mean, does anybody have any questions on how I got to this point? Like, let's just change this to actives. So there's 82. I have 82 active that are single family, that have 3 bedrooms, that are 200 to 300,000. Okay. So now, what I could do with this, so now I can email it. There's a couple cool things that I don't think people realize that you could do. If you don't want it to come from Flex, if you want it to come personally from your email, if for whatever reason you don't like that feel of it coming through here and you'd rather be more personal, or it's that type of client you know that they would rather see it come from you, you can tell, there's a button right here, I'll highlight it. It said, how would you like to send this email? So you can go through your personal email applications when it says, it's hard to read. Or what I always do, if it's that, I say, just give me the link. So now I have the link has been saved. So I say, get the link. So copy to clipboard. So now this link is copied to my clipboard. And I can copy and paste, and it's right there. So now when I send that email, that link's going to be active, it's going to be blue, and I'll still get a notification that they looked at it, but I won't get the same notification. I won't get the whole thing that says, here's what they looked at. I'll just get it says client has looked at, open your email. So if you've only sent this to one specific person, you'll know it was them, because it'll say client has looked at it. It won't say their email has looked at it like normal.
So they, go ahead. Sorry. They can still save it to the portal and everything?
Oh yeah, I'm just sending them the link.
Okay.
The link just
link up the exact same
yep,
thing that I
the link just works
okay.
exactly the same. It's just if you want to send it, like if I wanted to send it with my email signature
sure.
and personal for me, not through Flex, because I don't know, maybe they have a heavy spam filter and it's gonna knock it out and won't get through. Then I can go from direct. Do you have a question?
If you send it directly from Armless, will it also show up as a link, or will it show up as a finished product report?
So if you send it from Harmless, shows up. Trying to find out where mine are. I just sent out a bunch of these. So this is what it looks like. That's what shows up in their email.
And then has a link in the yellow box.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, on theirs it won't be yellow. That's just for me, my purposes. For the agent, theirs will just be a link, and there'll be a link to this. So it shows up as, let's see. I think I send it to myself sometimes.
It's a silly question, but can you save that report as, for example, like a PDF file, and that
the listings?
the report that you're sending off, can it be saved as a file so that they can so that when they open it,
it can be saved. So the link that you get, there we go. So this is what it looks like. I have it sending to myself. This is what it looks like as an end user. That's what it's going to look like. But you could, where you save them, so let's say I return to search results. So what you send is, so the link that you send is a live link. for 30 days. So as things go under contract, as things get taken off the market, it will update. As long as they hit refresh, it'll update to show that those listings are still available, price drops, anything that's happened, changed, will show up when they refresh it. So the link is a live link, but it's only valid for 30 days. But if I wanted to, I could print this. No, I'm not gonna print it, but you get to this, I could print whatever. So public is the email that they get, right? Public. So private, if I want private, which shows like private remarks, instruction or commission instructions, stuff like that, you can change that if you want. So like for our purposes, when we have a contract and we need to have the MLS printout, we always want the private one because that shows the commission. It shows what that commission offering is. So we always have that. But I could do whatever I want. I can do a listing detail report, I can do a listing report with no photo, I can do with a business card with photos, and then I can come down here and save it as a PDF. So if you want to take it with you to show, like if you have a list of 7 houses and you want to print that out for them that shows in order of how you're going to go, you can do that. You can print it out.
Andrew, I just got the delivery.
Yeah, it's just like that. Yeah, just like that. But you don't. I mean, if you want to say paper, you can just. It'll just be like. So let's see. If I just want. I don't want the detail, but I only want. I just want a list. So you can just do a list of them. So it'll just be the home, like the most important information, like price, size, square footage, and it'll just be a little blurb on there, and it'll just be a whole couple pages full. So you could do that as well. So if I wanted, say I wanted to email this, but I don't want to. I want it to go through Flex. Then you can either, if you have the contact and you've saved them as a contact, you just put it there. You can just start typing their name, like I have a bunch of, it automatically populates, and it'll send to whoever. Or if you just want to enter the email address, you can do that too. So if I send this, it'll give me the option to save it as a search. But if you want to save this as a subscription, so you would say search name. So you save it as a subscription. So you could just save this search if you ever just want to come back to it. If you want to add subscription, then you go contact is new. You just need their name and their email.
So if you're doing this quarterly, you don't have to go through the whole process. It's already in there for that person, just one click.
Yeah, as long as you save them as a contact originally, it'll just be that name. And you can, so if you want to do it that way, so here's a spot, create a portal. Does everybody know what a portal is? Okay. So you can create a portal. So with this link, once I do it, if I said yes, it would send me an activation for a portal. So and the portal will only show, so it's kind of cool, because if they have a specific budget or they're really tight and it only could be a certain kind of house, or only could be like FHA or it can only be VA, you can filter that out in the search, and then in their search parameters, that's all that will show up, and in their portal, that's all will show up. So they won't be sending you houses that they can't buy, which if you don't want them searching on Zillow, sending you a bunch of houses that you keep checking on and aren't going to work, which I have a couple of VA buyers, it's just that want condos and it's impossible. They keep sending me stuff that's through Redfin and stuff like that. Like, can you check this? Can you check this? Well, if I had them on here with a portal searching, then it's only going to show them things that they can actually purchase. So it's kind of cool that way. Right?
Is it set up too now where, like, let's say they're gonna look anyways, you're doing that, they just think there's something else out there, right?
Sure.
So they're gonna look anyway. So, can you just set that search up to where it doesn't narrow it down that far? And then can't they just go and search that whole perimeter, whatever?
They can only go and search the portal through the parameters that you've set for their search.
Okay, only what you've set.
Yeah. So if you want the widest net possible, then I would just do the parameters of where and how much, and then they can search. Anything else will come up in between that.
So you can set up a search, let's say, that's not going out to them daily,
Mhm.
that they can go look at. And then you can set up what you know fits their criteria that
Yep.
could go out to them daily.
Yep.
And then the app would be the same, basically.
Yep.
They can only search what's the same, basically, is
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah, it's the same. Everything for them on their end is only what we allow them to
Yeah,
see.
okay.
So
I thought I read somewhere that changed, that they could search it now.
I've not had any luck with anybody being able to do that.
Okay,
So to me, it seems like it's still the same.
okay.
But if I wanted to add this subscription, so I can customize the email that I wanted to say every single time. I could, the subject, if I wanted, attention grabbing subject, because this will go every single time. So, just remember that if you're gonna have something in the email, just remember that it's the same thing every time. And you could do every day if you wanted. You can do monthly. You can do pick what day of the month you want it to go out, or you can just say ASAP. So, and every time it'll be from you with an email and the content. And you can ask it to CC you, you can ask it to not CC you. So it's up to you if you want to see what they're doing. So right now this is set up for weekly, every day, or I can clear the days and I only want to see them on Saturdays. So, and then I save it. Now the subscription's been created, so now what do I want to do? If I want to email these listings now, choose listings email, or don't send. But if I went into my menu and save searches, it's right here. So then here I can view all. I can only view the new ones. So if I know they're actively looking, I could view them all in the last 24 hours to see if any news come up, any changes, view what they viewed, view news since I sent the original one, or whenever the last one was sent, I can view news since then. So there's a couple ways you could do that. Then I have a subscription, and then that's pretty much it for a subscription. Any questions on how to do a subscription? It's pretty simple once you get it done the first time. So contact management. So here's me. I just have myself in here because I send myself stuff sometimes. So I can go to my searches and subscriptions, everything that I have. I can go to my portal. And right here, so if you save someone, you can invite them to a portal. And all that is an email. It says so-and-so has set up a portal for you. Click here, and it'll take them to their portal site so that they can now search with the parameters that you've set up for them. Like if you just want them to be able to search, but you don't want them searching on Zillow, you just want them to search here, you can literally just save a search that's just active listings. So they could search the whole MLS that way. So that's another way to do that. So if you want them to only search on your branded website, that's how you do that. So all you need for the contact is a name and an email. And you can send an opt-in request, you can deactivate, transfer, remove, you can edit it, you can make notes about it, you can send them messages, you can update their portal, you can look at what they've been looking at, activity. So it's a good way to, if you, like mine, so if you go back to my first page, I have my contacts right here. And it tells me if they favorited anything, last time they were on the site, looking at their portal. So I know, if someone who's a long lead is on there now or has been on there recently, I know, I should probably reach out or just ask them what's going on, if they have any interest in anything. And it's a good way to for me, that's why I have it there. It's a good way to remind me to stay in front of people, to send them contacts if they're on the site recently.
Can you sync contacts from somewhere else onto your MLS?
I believe you have to go through, talk to Armless, so they can do it. They would have to, if you have it on if you save it as a, what do they call that? If you save it as, hold on, I was just working on my contacts. So if you export it as a CSV file, I think they can do it. So so you'd have to export it through Excel, or like I have numbers. So when I go here and I go to export, it gives me the options. Do I want a PDF, Excel, CSV? So I export as a CSV. So anybody, like if you use any kind of like Boomtown or any kind of service like that, HomeBot, that's what they're gonna ask you for. They're gonna ask you for a CSV file. So does anybody have any questions, anything they really need help with on Armless? Because other than that, we can move on to the next one. I mean those are pretty much the basic things that I use every day. Like there's a lot more. There's a ton of stuff in Armless that you can do. A ton of things to dive into that are helpful for business, but for the purposes of today, like that's not what we're here to cover. I mean they have hours and hours of webinars on the website to check out. There's a ton of stuff that can be done that, I mean, frankly, I don't use it, so I don't know. I use the most one I use is this map search button. I probably click that. That's the one I click the most, and that's probably what I do the most. So the rest of it, RPR is probably a close second, and then Monsoon just for writing contracts.
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Sure.
What's the difference between Flex MLS and
Armless is the organization, Flex MLS is the product. So if I went to armless.com, it would be the Arizona Regional Multiple Listing Service web homepage, and then there'll be a button to access Flex. So that's the only distinction. So I will move on to another one. I'll move on to zip forms. So zip forms is, I don't know if anybody's heard this, is in the process of getting kind of phased out. There's going to be a new program that's available starting March 1st in a beta version. You can use both. But so right now, as of right today, when 2019 is over, zip forms is going to be gone. It's going to be a new program. But they're in talks with the AAR right now. If they change a couple ways to update things, that we can keep zip forms too. People say they have a problem with it. It feels kind of archaic and slow, but I don't have any issue with it. It seems to work okay for me. Oh, one more thing before I forget. This is a very important thing. So, in order to activate on zip forms to have it pull information from the MLS, you will need this. And this is where you just change you can make whatever password you want. But so many people have no idea what password. I'll show you on zip forms, it's called MLS Connect. People have no idea what password it's actually asking for. It's asking for this. This password is that's the only place I know that you use it is for the MLS Connect. So that's why it's so confusing, but it's called reads settings. So you can do whatever password you want right here, and that's the only place. That's the only place I know where it gets used.
I never took the time to do it. I just keep doing it manually.
MLS Connect is amazing. So that's where you do it. So when you click on MLS Connect and it's asking you for a password, that's the password it wants. So
what's the password?
You make it up. You create whatever you want.
In the profile.
In your profile on Armless. So when you go click on the top right corner, it's going to ask you for your profile, and it's down here. It's just called RETS settings, and you make up your own password. And then when you go into zip forms and they connect, that's the password it's asking for. It's never been very well explained to anybody, and I don't know why they ask for it that way, but that's the way because it looks like it's asking for your MLS password. That's what it looks like, but it's not. So it's easy to get frustrated. So I will, this is a property that I just closed on, and I'll show you. So this MLS number, the only reason that's here is for specifically MLS Connect. So if I wanted, so if you click on, when you go to the property summary, when you open something up, before you add any forms, it'll be this. If it's a transaction, if it's a new buy, purchase, this is what's going to be here. So you click on this button right here, and there's the password it's asking for. I have mine saved, so I'll forget, but it's asking for their RUTS password. It's not asking. It's asking for your MLS ID. Mine's AG330, but it's not asking for your MLS password. It's asking. So just write that down. It's asking for your REIT password. So this will save you a ton of time. Because what it does is when you enter the MLS listing ID in here, it'll find the property, and it'll fill out address. It'll fill out parcel numbers. It'll fill out assessor's numbers. It'll fill out pretty much all the page one information, like the address. But the other cool thing it fills out is it fills out the other agent's information, so you don't have to do that, and they don't have to do that. It just automatically populates it. So if I went, now I verify the two things I always verify is the APN number, the assessor's parcel number, this number, and the legal description. Those are the the two things on a purchase contract that if incorrect will invalidate the contract. Then you can get out of the deal if those are wrong. The address is really inconsequential. It's the parcel number and the legal description, specifically the parcel number. But so it enters all that for you. So 5 through 7 it enters, and then on the end it enters all this information that I would have normally had to type in myself, if you're considerate. I personally get really annoyed when someone sends me an offer on one of my listings and they don't fill this in, because then I have to go in through DocuSign and fill it all in myself electronically, or print it out and do it. When, I mean, if you have MLS Connect set up, it takes 2 seconds, and you don't have to worry about it. So, to me, I think that's one of the best time-saving things that ZipForms does is the MLS Connect. So I will go through, one of the things we're supposed to be doing to you today is the contract. So I will quickly go through the purchase contract with you. And I'll just discuss, this is not a contract class, we have plenty of those. So if you haven't taken a contract class, or if you don't feel comfortable with everything that the contract says, please attend one of those. I'm just gonna go over the fillable portions. So line 1 is obvious, it's the buyer. Line 2, obvious seller. Premises address, it's obvious. The assessor's number is the APN number I told you on Monsoon. So that's, if you're writing an offer, you haven't connected it, that's where it goes. That's where you get it, that's where it comes from. Same thing with the legal description, it's on Monsoon. That's where you would find that. Now line 10 is the purchase price. Line 11 is the earnest money. In our case, this was a cash deal, so ours was just line 10 minus line 11 equals line 12. So if you had a finance deal and you were putting down 10% of this, it's just for our purposes, let's just say it was $300,000. So it would be $300,000 minus $3,000, and then the balance of that down payment would be $27,000. Everybody follow? Because it's 300 plus 3 plus to equal 30,000, and then the balance of the loan would be 270. So people ask, like who've written their first contract, sometimes ask me, how do you do the math on that? Well, my math on this contract, as long as the earnest money and the purchase price are correct, whatever, if the lender doesn't want that full down, or they have some other thing, like that doesn't, just because I put it here as the down payment, doesn't necessarily mean that's what their down payment is going to actually be. I just have to fill it out to match what their pre-qualification is. So they could, as long as they don't change programs, like if it goes from conventional to FHA, that's a loan status change. But if their down payment is like, instead of 10%, it's 11% or 9%, like it doesn't really change the program. So, I mean, I don't feel like I sometimes don't know because if they have a buyer credit, lender credit, like I don't know what the lender's doing. So I just try to be as close as I can be. And usually the lender will figure it out on the settlement statement. What you don't want to say is they're putting 20% down and they're really putting 5% down, because that really changes the kind of the status of the offer to me. And then, so line 24 is obviously close of escrow, that's a no-brainer. And possession, for our purposes, COE is possession. We don't ever want to click this box and put anything different unless it's absolutely necessary. Because obviously you want to change hands, when the property changes hands, it's a clean changeover. You don't want any post-possession, pre-possession, anything like that. So Addenda Incorporated, we've had a couple issues with people incorporating other and then putting like market conditions or affiliated business disclosures or stuff like that. Unless it's a requirement changes the contract, like lead-based paint is a requirement, it has to be their federal standard. Unless it changes the contract, we're under no obligation to sign any other broker's agreements. Like if they have a wire fraud that they want you to sign, you don't really have to. If they have a pool thing that they want you to sign, you don't have to, and it definitely doesn't go here because it's not really part of the contract. It has nothing to do with it. So.
What do you do if you get that?
What's that?
What do you do if you get one like that? Do you go ahead with it or do you?
I leave it up to my client. If they wanna sign it, great. If they don't, then I'm not going to. But it has nothing, it doesn't pertain to has no bearing on the contract. It's just that's their brokerage asking for us to relieve them of more liability. So, I don't have a problem with signing, anything that relieves me of more liability, I'm all for. But if my client throws a stink saying, I'm not signing this because this says Russ Lyons Sotheby's on it, why should I sign that? You're not with them. So, I've had a few clients who have pushed back and we just don't sign it. Their broker can't require it, and if they want to require it for their agent getting paid, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make my client sign something that has nothing to do with the contract. So just be wary of that. It's not a huge deal, but we do have agents who, literally their client won't sign it, and their broker throws a huge stink about it. So it's nothing that we can do about it. It is what it is. There's a ton of those out there, but we don't have to. So line 55 is additional existing personal property. Obviously, the big ones are refrigerator, washer, dryer, above ground pool, stuff like that. Other personal property included. That's where unless it's a ton of stuff or there's going to be a separate bill of sale. If they're leaving like a hot tub or if they're leaving, a barbecue grill in the back, something that can be taken out without damaging the property, but they're going to leave it, that's where it would go. Just so everybody knows. Financing, important parts are type, that can't change. Like once it's in the contract and whatever the prequel says, that has to be what it is. Otherwise, you're changing the contract. You're changing what the rules of the contract are. And not in this part, but just so everybody knows, if you change financing without previous seller written permission, if something happens, your earnest money could be at risk. So you cannot change. Your changing financing cannot result in any kind of cost to the seller or any kind of time frame delay. So it can't cost them any money and it can't cost them more time unless they agree to it in writing and agree to any change in writing. So just be aware of that. You just can't. I've had plenty of people say, "Hey, I want to switch financing," and I just let them know that you can do it. Sure, you can do whatever you want, but now you're at risk. So that's a heads up. We've had a bunch of earnest money disputes fights over that specific clause because everybody's interpretation is a little different, and so just be aware of that. Seller's concessions, that's obviously, you put whatever you want, either a percentage or a number. And then appraisal costs, you can put those in the seller's concessions. You can have the seller pay that. You can, right here on line 112, you say it either is or is not part of the concession. Now title and escrow, a lot of people leave this blank. It needs to be filled out no matter what, because you're directing the escrow company as part of the contract and will be part of the contract. Now another one where it says at COE or, like this should never be changed. It's always at COE unless there's some very extenuating circumstances, which I've never come across that for any reason why the probations would be close of escrow. Now lead-based paint. So there's two options here, 173, 175. One is if they provided you the lead-based paint document prior to you writing the contract, then you click 173 because you have the lead paint. You have that information. If they haven't, then it's 175. They have to provide it. You have to provide it within 5 days of contract acceptance.
Yeah, I have a question about that.
Sure.
So I had somebody looked at the house last weekend, and their question was about, was there a disclosure? I didn't know how to answer them.
Well, so a lead-based disclosure is a document in zip forms that's to be filled out by the seller. So I'll go over that when we get back to zip forms. I just wanna, while I had the contract pulled up, I just wanted to go over this.
Thank you.
Buyer warranties. So what this means is, if you're there, if your buyers and sellers somehow meet at a walkthrough or prior a showing, and the seller tells them something, they're gonna paint the kitchen, they're gonna replace the countertops, they're gonna do something with appliances, they're gonna do something that would influence your buyer's decision to write an offer on that property. It needs to go right there. There's a buyer is relying on something the seller said, and here's what they said. So it needs to be in the contract. I mean, that comes up so many times where the seller said they were gonna do X and it's not in the contract. What do you do? So now it's a sticking point. Now you have two people who are mad at each other, and it just makes contracts really, really crazy. So if they've said anything to you that you're gonna rely upon, then just put it there. Sewer system, I mean, if it's sewer, septic, alternative, the only alternative I know of is a septic that's not connected, so I've never run into an alternative system yet, so, I've done a ton of septic stuff, that's a whole different animal, but still pretty easy. So this is another one where there's certain things on here that have a spot to be filled out that I just don't mess with. Like, I think we passed the disclosure. So due diligence is one. So this to me is, I never change it when it's a traditional buyer with a traditional loan. I always leave it at 10 days. If it's an investor client and we need to maybe make our offer more attractive, then I'll change it and I'll make the days less. 5 days, 7 days. Something that shows that we're not gonna hold you up for, the full 10 days. So that's the only time that would ever change. I'll never change it for a buyer or a traditional buyer. So sewer system. And this is another one. Seller shall respond in writing within 5 days. So when you send in your Binzer of the items that you want repaired, seller has 5 days from the day of receipt. So, and then this one is another one. So they're supposed to have evidence of corrections and repairs to buyers 3 full days prior to close of escrow. I don't change that either. That's why this says 3 days, and that's why the final walkthrough says 3 days. Because these should align. It should be 3 days, 3 days. And here's your home warranty. If you want a home warranty, you don't want a home warranty, this is where it go. If you don't want one, you have to click. And either way, your buyer needs to initial it. Additional terms, as you can see, this was a investor client, so I have quite a bit of additional terms I write in. None of which is really that important. The only one that is line 69, a purchase contract to be removed. The line 69 just says that an AAR pre-qualification is attached to the contract, and these guys don't do AAR pre-qualifications, they do cash. So if it's not an AAR, you have to remove it because it says it is. It doesn't say it should be or it could be, it says it is attached. So that's why when people ask you for, you have to send a pre-qual, well, it's because the contract says that you did send a pre-qual, it's attached to it. And that's why, because it's written as such, that's why if you change lending terms, that's why it's part of, because the pre-qual is now incorporated into the contract. The terms of it are incorporated, what it says on there is incorporated, so you can't just change it without, it'd be like you just arbitrarily deciding to change the close of escrow date. You can't do that without an addendum.
I have a question about that, and this is something that I called Larry about this morning. This weekend I'm going to be doing an open house for another agent. It's her house. Mm-hmm. 2 agents in the same agency, selling the same property, or being involved with the same property, I should say. How does that appear on the?
How do you mean 2 agents?
She owns the house. She's an MHG agent. I will probably be the buyer's rep, so I will be the second agent involved with MHG.
Mhm.
How does that appear on?
So you would write that in the additional terms that the seller is a licensed agent in the state of Arizona? That's it? You just need to acknowledge it somewhere in writing?
And that the buyer is aware of it, right?
You could write that, but if it's in section 8 and they sign it, that's, pretty much an acknowledgement that they know. So then your terms of acceptance, you know, how long are you gonna give them to respond by? And so this is kind of a misconception. So if this says January 31 at 10 p.m. and I don't hear anything, that doesn't mean my offer's dead. It just means that they can't sign it and send it to me and we're under contract. I could still accept that offer if I want to. That doesn't mean we have to redraw a contract, doesn't mean any of that. It just means that that obligation of the contract is no longer valid unless I want it to be valid. So just clarify that. You could do an addendum, a time of acceptance if you want, but there is no more obligation. Like after that time frame is passed, that's all that means. It doesn't mean that, you know, it just means they didn't answer you by that time. So now if they send you a signed contract, you're not bound to that contract. So that's all that really means. And then this is obviously just your information, the brokerage information, all those things that we need to be populated. And then all this was pre-populated with the MLS Connect. So pretty simple. And for whatever reason, this button is super tiny. It's an important button, counter offer button. If you're gonna get a counter, give a counter, make sure that's clicked. If you send this without that button clicked, but sent it with a counter offer, with it signed as you normally would, but the counter offer was attached. Well, I mean, your implication, it's implied that you sent a counter offer, so it's not really a huge deal. Well, it usually shouldn't hold up in court, but best practices is click the button, so there's no, there's no kind of confusion. It's counter offer. Does anybody have any general questions on that, on the contract? I mean, it's pretty, the fillable parts are pretty simple. It's everything else in there that's kind of gets interpretation is sticky. That's why I would recommend anybody sit through a contract class, especially one by John Dyer. He does a really good job of explaining what it means, what it is. Especially the section 2, which is the financing section. There's just a lot of confusion on that. And then the other thing too that everybody should be aware of is that earnest money. So earnest money disputes. In this contract, it says we've given the title company the explicit and ultimate right to decide. Like we have no decision, our broker has no decision, the listing agent has no decision. It's whoever decides it is going to be the title company. And now you can go to arbitration if you don't like the decision, but they're going to be the one to make the decision. They're going to be the one that says, hey, this has to go to arbitration. We as agents, so if your seller buyer asks you, what are you doing? Like we can't do anything. All we can do is present a case. They make the decision, and you can always say the contract you signed says that specifically, that we've given them that right. So something to go over when you're having a buyer or seller sign a contract is to make them aware that, hey, should anything bad happen, this is what's going to happen, and we don't have any control. We're agreeing upfront to arbitrate or let the title company decide. So here's a couple quick tips. So here's all your forms. So every single form that you ever are going to need for a purchase is here. There are so many different forms. There is a solar lease addendum now. That's a new one.
This is a zip form.
This is zip forms. So right at the top, there's forms library, right? So here's another one that people have a question on when you're doing dual agency. Even if it's not traditional dual agency, you're not repping both sides, even if it's just an agent in my home group, we have to have the limited disclosure. It's not called dual agency, it's called consent to limited representation.
If what now? Show me again please on that. Why you would need to have that form signed?
If you're representing both sides of the transaction, or if you're representing a transaction listed, or the buyer's agent is from your same brokerage, you have to have that. Because we're all the same brokerage. The listing belongs to the brokerage, not the agent.
Right, so that's what I was asking, is if there's two agents involved with the same both of them are from MHD,
Yeah.
that we would need to both have that form signed.
You wouldn't both need, you would have to have it signed like this. So it's name, buyer, and then is there one license? Are you representing both sides of the transaction? Or is it two licenses?
Yes, two licenses.
So that's what you would fill out, and then both people would sign.
Good to know.
So here's all your forms. So there are different libraries. So the Armless library is where the listing agreement is. So that's where you would, and the profile sheet, sold change form for any changes that need to be signed off on. But this is probably the number one thing you're gonna go for right here is the exclusive right to sell. And that's, some people, we get a lot of calls, people not knowing where that is, and you just have to change the tab. There's other stuff in here, there's all kinds of things that you can send your clients. 7 reasons to work with a realtor, asking for referral. I mean, there's all kinds of other things that they put in here. How to navigate short sales, just all kinds of stuff that I would encourage you to go through and look.
Where is zip forms?
What's that?
How do I get the zip forms?
So zip forms is set up through your association, and it's just zipformsplus.com. So whatever association you're a member of, they provide, it's part of your NAR benefits. So you would ask them for your initial access, and it has all your information, and the individual agent, stuff like that. But that's how they would set it up for you. You would have to ask them for your initial stuff. And then it's just zipformsplus.com, and when you're gonna come to this dashboard, and I always just come to my transactions. So if you want to do a new transaction, it's pretty easy. New listing, new purchase offer, new lease listing, and once you click on that, you just enter the information really quick. So I have templates that I've created, especially for my remodel clients, my investor clients. So all that verbiage I had on section 8, the title company that I want, the normal earnest deposit we do, I have it pre-populated, so you can create a template and add the forms you want. So if you wanted to create a buyer template, you could create the documents that need to go into a traditional buyer sale, which if you wanna write that down, here's usually what you need. So when I submit an offer, you usually need, number 1, buyer advisory. Number 2 is market conditions. Obviously, make them sign.
Buyer advisory.
Market conditions. Number 3 is the agency disclosure and election.
Oh, there is.
And then number 4 is the residential purchase contract. So those are basically every time. You'll have to check the MLS. Usually, if there's an HOA, usually they need to provide that for you, the HOA addendum. But those are pretty across the board. Those are the ones you're going to need every time. And then it'll change based on what kind of property it is. Like if there's a solar lease, you'll need the solar lease addendum. If there's a septic, you'll need the on-site wastewater addendum. It'll just depend on what kind of transaction it is. So that's how you create a transaction. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's just a couple clicks. And then once it's created, you just add your forms. So if I want a form that I don't have, all the ones I have are highlighted in blue. Like if I needed another counteroffer, okay, well now it's there. And it's already populated with all the information. I just have to put which number of counteroffer it is. It's a counteroffer originated by who, and it's a counteroffer to what? Is it an offer, counteroffer, and then what date that offer was dated, or whatever date that counteroffer was dated. And then we do the same thing, we do the time for acceptance, by when, by what time, and that's pretty much it. Anybody have questions on how to create a transaction in zip forms? It's pretty simple, just a couple clicks. And this dashboard, how this is set up, is it's not changeable. This is how it's going to look for you. It's how it's going to look for everybody. And once you click transactions, that's just what shows up. So then you can create. I would encourage everybody to create a template with specific. If you have specific verbiage that you want in your contract every time, like some that I have is I'm never in possession of the earnest money, so I put that in there. And I always put earnest money will be deposited within 48 hours of contract acceptance, or 2 business days, however you want to say it. Because otherwise, the way the contract reads, technically you should have the earnest check, and the earnest money is due at the soonest available time for Arizona revised statutes. So I always like to give my clients a couple, if they're at work or they can't do it, they can't get a cashier's check, whatever reason it is, I always like to give them a little bit of time to get that earnest money in. So, but the templates save me a lot of time because those 4 documents I talked about, I just have a template, and every time I go in, those 4 documents are already populated in that transaction with the information, because it's going to ask you on that very first page where you can edit this information. Right here, where you edit this information, it'll populate everything for you. So,
What do you mean it'll populate it?
well, if you do the MLS Connect, it'll populate the address. The only things you'll have to add are the lines we went through, the names of the buyers and the terms, but the actual address, the agent information, the other agent information, all that stuff will be added for you if you do it that way. So zip forms is one where you got to kind of play around with it, just because the forms are there. It's hard for me to tell you exactly what you're going to need because every transaction is different. Those 4 you're pretty much going to need every time. For a listing, all you're going to need is all you would really need for any listing at the start is the exclusive right to sell. Exclusive right 1, 2, 3 for single properties up to 4 units, and you're going to need agency disclosure for the seller. That's really all you need. Then everything else is based on when you have a contract, spuds, everything else will be sent at that time. But to start a listing in zip forms, those are the 2 documents you need filled out. So not too heavy on that side.
Andrew, what is the longest amount of time that you have ever seen a transaction happen? Am I asking this right?
Like time, like from start to, from when I took it to when it closed?
Yes.
I had one that took 2 years. It was a short sale. Yeah. I took the listing in 2014 and I closed it in, I took the listing in August of 2013 and I closed it in August of 2015.
Wow. And that was on a short sale.
It was a short sale. Yeah.
And what is typical?
6 months or less usually on a listing, and then buy sides are 30 to 45 days if it's a loan. Usually, right now, mostly 30 for loans. I wouldn't go, like if you're writing an offer and you put something 40 to 45, you're probably going to get pushback from the seller unless they really don't care, because it makes it look like there's some reason why. And then real quick on SkySlope. So SkySlope is something that we have, you can get set up through Andrea to have this turned on for you. This is basically our brokerage's contract management system. and it's super simple once you have it set up. There's a few buttons. There's manage transactions, create a transaction, manage listings, or create a listing. So if you, for instance, creating a listing is super easy. SkySlub has made it super easy. So like you need, so you enter the address. So let's see. Okay, I don't even know where that came from, but all right. Now they're asking what type of listing. So what type of listing you select is gonna auto-populate what documents are required. So okay, well it's just a regular resale. Next question. How much? Let's say it's 300,000. Next question. How much is the commission? 3%, 3%. Next question. When is it listed? So today, the expiration date. Expiration date is there. So it's asking you what year the property is built. It's asking this because if it's pre-1978, then the lead-based paint is going to be required. 2008. Where did I get the deal from? So now it asks you the name, Joe. Seller. So it says, does this look right? Gives you all this information. Create my listing. Okay, so now it's asking, so now the listing is created, and so this is the documentation you'll need. So what this is, tax ownership printout, you get that from Monsoon. How you do that, it's pretty simple. So you go into the listing you created, or you can go into regular Monsoon and just put the address, whatever's easier, but I always find it easier to do this. Click Monsoon, and then there's a couple buttons here. There's current screen, or there's tax summary report. You click that, and you click PDF, and it'll drop a PDF into your downloads, and that's all you need. So that covers that one. Agency disclosure, those are the one of the two documents I told you you need. So you just need agency disclosure. The MLS printout is literally the MLS printout. So if you want to print, and instead of printing it, you click PDF, it drops the PDF into your downloads again. And then, so then there's MLS input or printout sign. So we always want to verify that the information we put on the MLS is correct and the seller signs off on it. So I send that printout through DocuSign or whatever signature package you want to use and have them sign that. And then that way the brokerage knows that the information was verified.
How do you do DocuSign?
What's that? That's
How do
just,
you do DocuSign?
you have to subscribe to it.
How?
What's that?
How?
Go to DocuSign.com and just sign up for it. We have e-sign through SkySlub that you can ask the girls about, but it's a little bit cheaper, but I prefer DocuSign. I've been using it for a long time. I have an app on my phone. It just seems to be easier. And then the only other document you need is exclusive right to sell. I mean, it's pretty easy on a listing side.
What's the other one? What's the other website you said?
For signatures?
Yeah.
DocuSign?
No, other one. You said another website.
eSign?
E-sign?
E-sign.
That's through SkySlub.
And
It's available through SkySlub.
who pays for that?
You do.
You-
$5 a month.
You would pay for that, yeah.
Oh, it's $5.
So if I wanted to create a new transaction, let's say I have a buy contract that I got. This is, where we go? What are you doing?
They have a free one from Winform.
From
Winform has a free one.
what form?
It's pretty crappy, but they do a lot.
Thank you.
That froze. I mean, there's all kinds of different ones you can get. You can get DocuSign. You can get e-sign. There's one through AAR you can get. That's, they have that e-sign through AAR. There's all kinds you can do. Me personally, I prefer DocuSign. That's the one I've been using forever.
It's pretty expensive, right?
It's like $180 for the year. So if I wanted to create a buy side, but everything else is like, so it's like, I guess like zip, I think it's $5 through DigiSign. It's $5 a month, so I mean, you're gonna pay for one of them. And I don't think DigiSign has an app, so I like to be able to sign and create signatures and remind people to sign stuff through my phone. And I know when they sign because I get notifications.
So everybody has to do this.
I mean, if you wanna do it old school and take it to them and have them sign it, you can do that too. There's no requirement for e-sign. So if I wanted to create a transaction, it's gonna ask you for quite a bit of information, because if you're on a buy side, unless it's off market, you're gonna have all this information, MLS, checklist types, street names, all those things. And then the other thing, so what it would ask for,
Have a good day.
I'll go back to my transactions. So it asks for all this information, and then it asks for contacts. So the ones that are required are gonna be seller, purchaser, title, and other agent. It'll ask you for all that information. Purchaser, and it asks you for just basic info, email, name, phone, and then the agent, email, name, phone, as well, and brokerage. And then you have to fill out commission, sales price, what the commission is, it auto-populates that, and then the checklist populates. So, it knew I had an HOA. The earnest money is gonna be one that's required. The purchase contract, the tax ownership, the MLS printout, all those same things you're gonna need. The seller property disclosure, the insurance claims history, the agency election, again, for buyer though. Buyer advisory, which is one of the 4 docs you ought to always send. The BINSR, the final walkthrough. The pre-qual proof of funds is a requirement. And then commitment for title insurance, which all these documents you'll get at some point through the transaction. The earnest money receipt will be provided by the title company. The title commitment will be provided by the title company. The SPUDs will be provided by the seller. The insurance claims history will be provided by the seller. We just require that you have the buyer sign those. And then here's something that's pretty cool. So once you have a transaction set up, there's this email address. So if you CC this email address on any documents that you've sent that are signed, fully executed, it'll automatically put them here. So it'll put them here, and you can put them, then you can just assign them to wherever you want them to go for a review. So you don't have to log into SkySlope, upload the documents manually. If you CC that email address, it'll send it to the right file, which is pretty cool, saves time. Saves time from you having to do it twice. Then there's a log of like when things were updated, who updated what time. And then if you wanted to go so far, you can do tax. Set reminders, you can use it to remind you that the BINSR is due in 10 days or something like that. And then the basic general, you can do property information if you want. For our purposes, for the brokerage purposes, for what I use it for, I specifically just the contacts, the commission, and the checklist, and the documents. That's as far as I go with it. If you wanted to go further, you could. But our requirements are our requirements. Those are the documents that are required. If you have any specific questions about documents per transaction, we have that on our back end. But it's gonna be based on the information you provide on what type of transaction it is. So if it has a septic, or if it has a well, or if it, whatever that transaction is. But so SkySlope is it's pretty user-friendly, pretty easy once you have it. If you've ever had an issue with uploading the document or needing someone to review something, that's what the broker line's for, because we're the ones who are reviewing this thing. And then if there's ever a canceled transaction, like I want to go through and cancel this one now because it was never there. So now that listing's gone. But if I have a listing and I want to accept a contract, it's this button right here. Then you can accept a contract. And then if you have a cancellation on a buy side, like someone canceled for an inspection, it's right here. Cancel the contract. So you could upload like a cancellation to your file, but unless you click this button, it's never going to notify us to accept the cancellation, it's just gonna sit there on SkySlope not canceled. So that's something that we ask everybody to do, is actually physically cancel it on your end, because we can't do it. On our end, we can't do anything. On the manager side, we can't do anything unless it's prompted by an action from you, like unless you've uploaded something for us to look at, or unless you've canceled a transaction, added something, we're not able to look at anything. So just FYI on that. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. There's plenty of classes on it. But those are the two quickest things. It's just gonna ask you for basic information, and once it's set up, that email address is super helpful. Just send stuff right to it, and you still have to populate it, but at least you don't have to go find it on your computer again. So, anybody have questions? Quick questions on SkySlope?
Well, I have a question back to what I was asking about, lead-based homes.
Yeah.
So, again, I had somebody come into the open house and ask if there was some kind of disclosure, whatever, about that. How do you handle a question like that?
Well, if it's pre-1978, there will be a disclosure.
But where? Because they
The seller has to provide it. It's something the seller has to provide to you, filled out from them.
And so in an open house, you wouldn't necessarily have that?
No, you wouldn't have that at all.
Okay.
It's generally not a requirement unless you have a contract, or unless you have a listing that's uploaded. It could be on the listing uploaded already, if they're so inclined to ask for that.
So the proper response to a question like that is, if you're interested in the house, the seller will provide it?
If it's pre-1978, it will be required. It is a requirement. It's federal law.
Okay. Thank you.
So if someone had it, there'll be a tab up here. Let me see if I have something with documents. So I don't have a lead-based paint one. This was the documents. So it would be here. Insurance history, HO addendum. So if and only if, so if you go to the report section, if and only if there's documents been uploaded to this specific listing, the documents tab will be there. If there's no documents uploaded, it won't be there. So if it is, then if they want to have provided prior to a contract, it'll be there. If not, it'll be a requirement to be provided. So that would be the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any general questions? Anything they're curious upon? Anything that is bugging them? Anything like that? I mean, I know it's a lot of stuff. It's just something that these are MLS, zip forms, SkySlope. Those are the three. If you're doing any level of production or business, those are the three you'll be in most of the time. So I'll try to get some level of familiarity with them. MLS does a lot more than just look for properties. It can be your CRM. You can have it keep track of people. You can have it email people. You'll know when they're seeing stuff. You'll know their information's accurate. So if you don't have a CRM, you can use it for that. If you want to use RPR through it, I mean, there's tons of stuff, even above and beyond what I've covered, because that's a 4-hour class to go over everything that Harmless has, and it's already provided. So I would just encourage you to go to their site and look at their trainings and everything that they've provided, based on, I mean, there's so many other tabs here that I didn't even go to, like RBI, New Home Pro, Property Panorama. There's just a bunch of stuff that they provide to you you're already paying for. So I would get familiar with it as best you can and utilize it, because it's part of your dues no matter what you do, if you don't use it or not use it. So, and then zip forms, super easy. There's a ton of other stuff in the zip forms you can use too, like all those extra forms, like informational, but it's really just, I use it only for contracts. I don't use it for anything else. Contracts and listings, and once you've done one or two, it gets pretty simple, and you can, I could probably write a contract in like 3 minutes. It doesn't take any time. As long as you know the parameters, it's super quick. And then
How long have you been doing this?
What's that?
How long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been licensed since 2012, and I've been a broker for 4 years. But it's pretty intuitive once you, like, as long as you know which forms you need, there's not very many places for you to fill things out, and like we discussed, I wouldn't fill out any more than is necessary, because it could just convolute the transaction. So, I mean, as long as you know the basic parameters, it goes pretty quick. And then SkySlope is really, really easy, especially listing, like that Sky TC. I mean, it took me all of, as long as I know the information, it took you 3-4 minutes and you have a listing, and then the transaction is just as easy. So.
Yeah, I need to say this. As long as I've been involved with an agency since September, I've heard it told over and over again how easy things are and for those of us who haven't done this yet, can you tell us the other side of it? Like, when you were a new agent, like, can you give a scenario of what would be the most complicated transaction, maybe in terms of paperwork and so forth, that you've experienced?
Well, the most complicated is a short sale, just because the bank is involved. But when I say it's easy, I mean creating the transaction in SkySlope is easy. Creating a listing in SkySlope is easy. Using these services for the basics that I've covered today, transactions, listings, it's fairly easy as long as you just play around with it and look at it. Real estate is not easy, and doing transactions is not easy. The actual doing of the deals is not easy. That's not an easy task. Using these systems should be pretty easy. They've made it pretty user friendly as best they can, and they've made it intuitive as best they can. Like there's a ton of stuff in here, but if you don't, like on a day-to-day basis, I don't use those things, then you don't need to worry about them. I don't worry about them. So if you want to dive deeper into it, you're welcome to, but it's not a necessary thing to do business. So I guess that's what, yep, absolutely. If you have any questions, my email's on the back end. So, but as far as I'm concerned,